we have a World Protected Area Leadership Forum dinner that we are getting together to help plan the program for the 2014 World Parks Congress. So thank you. So I won't get to say, but I'm sure excited about hearing the results of tonight's workshop. Thanks.
Thanks so much, John. And IUCN is hugely grateful for that support, the Dave and brother support. Second speaker, who's also going to leave, I hope they are going to go to a bar or let's have dinner, is Nicola King, who for the last 8 years has been chair of World Commission on Protected Areas. It was Nate who brought me in as vice chair of capacity building, which I sort of think was a favour. And Nick's going to say a few words now.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Yes, I am sorry that you do have to leave, but on the other hand, it's going to be a nice dinner. And I'm sorry to leave because this is a topic that is really critical. It's a critical one for the Commission. The Commission is well known for setting standards, among other things, a series of best practices and guidelines. And we were here this afternoon when we launched the latest one that is coming shortly. Our evidence of our commitment to developing and providing basic information on park management on various topics. But really, that isn't enough. That publications are becoming dated, but nevertheless, we're still committed to producing them because they are fundamentally a source of information that is going to be useful for park managers around the world. We are getting conscious of the fact that paper products perhaps is not the most efficient way of transmitting information, and we're moving towards production of e-based, electronically based information publications. A major project that Graham, I think, will be speaking to is an e-book on park management, which was aiming to be completed in time for the World Parks Congress. So beyond the publications, there are many other ways of building capacity. And beyond the manuals and reports, it's because capacity building is a complex, multifaceted issue that has to be approached from various angles. Certainly, the question that one has to ask is who are you training and who's your audience and how do you tailor that training and capacity building. But you can use, certainly build it on partnerships, build it on demonstration projects, research, etc. There are many ways of approaching this, and the fundamental way of doing this is not by doing it internally, but doing it in a partnership arrangement. And John has talked about the commitment of the U.S. Park Service, so we have others who are committed to help us delivering on this. The effort of moving this forward is an important step because it also gives us a very targeted trajectory for the World Parks Congress where we want to deliver our commitment on capacity building. So it's also more than about hearing simply learning new skills. It is also building the confidence and spirit of the people who are on the ground. So it's a matter of not just providing information, it's also about building cohesion, building a commitment, and building an understanding. That comes only from mentoring, involvement of those individuals in a broader community of like activities. So there's a number of challenges that we all have to try to address in the context of building capacity. Fortunately, we have a number of opportunities ahead of us that are going to permit us to move on this. Besides the partnerships which I just mentioned, there's also the Biodiversity Convention, there's the Convention to Combat Desertification, the UN World Conservation Monitoring Center, and other agencies of that ilk that are interested in this topic and are willing to work with us as partners. Then we have a project the EU, the European Union has funded a 10 million euro called BioPalm, which is aimed at 3 regions, the Pacific, the Caribbean, and Central America, Africa. This is definitely a boost for IUCN as a way of building that capacity that which I just spoke that we will be speaking to in the next hour and a half. The fundamental one that I wanted to really point out to you is that this is what you're talking about is knowledge products. And if you were in the opening ceremony, you may remember Paul's talk about the new program that is going to be adopted at this conference. And one of the products that is featured in that particular program is knowledge products. And it's exactly this that you're talking about, building up, and it's going to be identified as an IUCN delivery. So what you're talking about is delivering under the context of the program, and I acknowledge that. Education and training through global partnerships, develop competency standards, and Edward is going to be standing in front of you telling you about our commitment to developing a curriculum, which I think is just a marvelous initiative that will hopefully see standardization and understanding of the needs to deliver competent staff. Management effectiveness is another element of our commitment, and later this week you're going to hear, if you attend, a workshop on the green list. This is an effort of trying to build an awareness of how well managed protected areas do it, and as a result are recognized as such and place on what we're calling the green list. So a number of things that are happening that not only is ending at this particular workshop, are continuing through the course of the week. And by the end of the week, you'll have a full complement of initiatives dealing with capacity development, which will indeed help us in committing or reaching a commitment that we have to build the standards and the effectiveness of the staff that are on the ground. So I wish you the best for the next hour and a half or whatever time is left. And we listen. John and I are about to leave, and we thank you for staying here and doing the work that we should be doing.
John, Nick, thanks very much indeed. Very good. I'm glad to go last Congress as well. Okay, you're going to stare at me for a few minutes. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the kind of things that we're talking about. And then we're going to have 6 speakers who I'll introduce after that, who are going to describe components that are either already well within the IUCN protected area capacity program or are enthusiastic colleagues and possible partners. So, on one level, IUCN has always produced technical information. That's one of the things it does. And within the protected area program, we've had a series of best practice guidelines which now go back about 15 years. Initially started and edited by Adrian Phillips, who many of you know, who was past chair of the Royal Commission on Protected Areas. So we have that background, but what we're doing at this stage is really racking that up to a different level and bringing a number of different elements into that process. The program we're in effect launching tonight has 3 main components: knowledge products, education and training, and bringing management effectiveness more centrally into the capacity building process. With knowledge products, just to remind you, we have over the years produced many books, but also best practice guidelines. We now have a new design, and as John said at his talk, we've got many that are now out of date or produced up to 10 years ago, and we have a commitment by the time of the World Parks Congress that we'll have an entirely new set and also a greatly expanded set. We just published one on restoration this afternoon, which is new. It was a partnership with Parks Canada and with Society of Ecological Restoration. We will have one out on governments and protected areas in the next couple of months, and there's many others in production. We've consciously linked the design to the Protected Planet design of Unit WCMC with their permission, and so all our publications were also slightly different from the general IUCN publications. Within this process is also e-learning modules with the CBE and UNDP, a series of technical briefs. We're doing many more short briefings than we used to, and those are one of the good things about those. They were, again, I think discussed several times today. One of the things we're really trying to do with those is make them in multiple languages. We've been working with language students to get very cheap translations, which are then checked by native speakers for accuracy. We got the first few in 10 languages within a few months. So really, a rapid promotion of many languages, and also these are open access. So what people are doing is taking the basic modules, getting them in Word format, and adding their own examples in. So these are really things people use themselves. They don't have anyone's names on. They're not copyright their video. And all we really ask is to get copies and to learn and to find out what people are doing, so we can learn. We have an ebook coming, which I won't talk about now because Graham will speak about it in detail. We've relaunched Park's Journal, which has been a journal that WCPA has had for many years, but stopped for a while. It's relaunched as an open access, peer-reviewed, and online journal. It's going to be launched. There are actually a few printed copies here for the launch, but basically be online. And we see that very much as a key delivery mechanism. And I hope many of you will be involved both as authors, but also as reviewers. It's peer-reviewed, it's mainly reviewed within WCPA. And we also put a great emphasis on translation. When I took over capacity development, I asked the steering committee and asked WCPA what was their top priority. They said, way before more stuff is to get stuff in more languages, get what we have already in more languages. So we've been translating many more things into particularly French and Spanish, but also a lot more into Arabic. We have a big Arabic membership, into, as you heard, Korean, Turkish, Japanese, really Italian, really moving out. And then a short of things are going into languages that are really quite limited in their scope, like Georgian and Azerbaijani. So we're getting stuff that is immediately applicable in the field. So knowledge products will remain central, but hopefully much more fluid and more varied than the past. And we really like your feedback on what you need there as well. One of the things John Jarvis asked for, which we haven't done yet, we have sort of started sketching out, is elevator conversations, a 100-word summary of a key issue that you can really buttonhole someone and give them a message very quickly. It's very difficult to write, but we're hoping to have a whole series of those, for instance. Education and training, Edward is going to talk about in detail, but basically we're looking at open source curricula for a range of different types of protected area, professional, senior administrators, protected area managers, and rangers, all key. An accreditation program for training institutions and a scholarship fund, and Edward will talk about that in detail. But here we really like feedback. We'd like to know from other people who are already with institutions that are doing things, because we certainly don't want, as WCPA, to be the inventors or the holders of all the information. We, as much as anything else, we want to see facilitation and spreading out of information that other people have done. And then we also have a link to this, a more general push towards management effectiveness. One element of which is a green list of sites that meet a green standard of protected area management. One of the things that the CPD program of work on protected areas identified back in 2004 was that protected areas did not only need management effectiveness, but need some agreed standards to measure against. We really didn't do that in the first part of the program of work, but IUCN has taken up that challenge and is looking at a green list, almost the mirror image of the red list, which is the bad news. The green list, which is an aspirational list that protected areas would apply for and only meet if they meet certain standards. And we're exploring that in a number of ways. We've got a series of projects in Colombia at the moment looking at testing that out in the field. We're also collaborating with the Wildlife Institute of India and WWF to develop tiger standards, so standards for tiger protected areas throughout tiger range countries, which is another way of cutting this up. And then, I sort of put in, as a last thing, IUCN also does a lot of hands-on training, and we can't do things all on web, we can't do things all by written paper, so increasingly people are being asked to do training face-to-face, involved in-country with people, working with packages for protected area agencies, but also looking at specific issues that maybe IUCN has some expertise about, and we can choose draw on our a range of experts to provide information. So that's something that is almost sort of bubbles along below the surface, but is something that's taking more and more of our time. So that's a very brief introduction. There's a series of other events which are on your list, which I hope you'll go to some or all of. And then for the next part of the session, we want to leave a good long period for discussion. For the next part of the session, we've got 6 specialists who are going to give you 10-minute presentations, and I'll sort of, as much as possible, try and keep the 10 minutes because I want to keep space for conversation, but 10-minute presentations on a range of different issues. So starting with Edward Mueller, who is the Training Task Force leader of WCPA. I'll introduce everyone and then they'll just come up one by one. And Edward runs his own university in Costa Rica, which has a protected area training program of long standing, but is also taken on the Training Task Force and explained something really at the heart of the IUCN program. Then Danilo Sarabia, who is going to speak in Spanish. He speaks perfect English, but he says it's going to be more poetic in Spanish, so those of you who don't speak Spanish, please put on your translator. And he is the director of the university, the protected area program at Edwards University, and is going to tell you about that. Many people at this Congress have been involved in teaching that over the years. There's a whole group of former teachers around, so it's a well-established and exciting example of what we can be doing. Then we have Vinod Mathur from the Wildlife Institute of India, who Vinod and I worked together for at least 15 years now. I think we know each other very well. And Vinod has really pioneered, WII has pioneered teaching of wildlife management, protected area management, not only in India but all of South Asia, and had a lot of students, a lot of very exciting initiatives and publications and programs. Next we have Graham Warboys, known to many of you. Graham, although he's the Mountains Connectivity Task Force leader, this evening he's going to be talking specifically about the e-book that he's developing, which builds on a massive textbook that many of you will know, Managing Protected Areas, that Graham, Ashish Kathari and Michael Lockwood did for the last World Class Congress. Then Deanne Adams is going to talk about the International Rangers Federation. We work increasingly closely with RF, and we see them as a key partner. In many protected areas, the manager changes once a year or so. The rangers are there for their whole professional life. They often don't have access to training. They're the people who actually do the stuff and get it. And so we have a major priority to increase the amount of information available for them. And then last but not least, Julius Francis from the West Indian Ocean Marine Science Association is going to talk about the certification system that they've developed, and again, it's the kind of model that we could be looking at. So each of those will come up in turn, starting with Edward, and I'll sort of keep timing if I can. Thank you very much.
So, thank you all for coming here. Just a short reminder, in the 3 sheets you got, since we're a small group, we'll probably be asking the questions by microphone. But don't forget this feedback form. Those who are working in academic institutions and NGOs, etc., that are working with capacity, we want to have your feedback and use your contact. The idea is to involve a big group in the training task force for the big tasks that we have ahead of us. So, it was already mentioned that this is a global partnership. The idea is that we bring in partners from all over the world to professionalize protected area management. And it has different components, and I'll go quickly through them. The first question is, why do we need professionals? Any other professional area has professionals. If you work in a bank, you're trained in bank management. And in many regions of this world, for many years, we didn't have protected area managers. We had biologists and had to learn the rest along the way. We started with conserving species, then conserving ecosystems, a little landscapes, but now we have growing population, growing consumption, growing pressures, mining, etc. We have depletion of stocks, we have loss of biodiversity, and on top of that we have climate change. And we expect people with one form of training to be able to cope with all of this. It's almost impossible with the complexity. And if you add the value and we add the surface, 20% of Latin America is protected areas. Now, how can we not have professionals to manage 20% of Latin American territory that are probably valuable, more valuable than the gross product of many of these countries? As Nigel mentioned, the inspiring institution was the institution where I work with, because we launched a bachelor's program, university degree program 15 years ago. And this week, this is a local newspaper from Wednesday, we graduated another 23 park managers. Now this is about half of the number of parks already have been a park manager that has been trained over the last 15 years. I won't go into details because Danilos is going to do that. We worked afterwards on a master's program that's not only protected areas, for regional developments and integrating the PAs into biodiversity. And now with United Nations University and Inuit and the Florida Institute of Technology, we're launching a master's program on coastal and ocean management. So I won't go into this, but this is just to show you how complex it is. We have to define competencies, and from the competencies and the knowledge base,